Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. A few things I wanted to talk about this morning. The first of which is we are going to witness today a disgusting spectacle because today is the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, and they will be holding it at a stadium in Arizona, like it's a freaking rock concert or something. And I'm not going to watch it. I'm sure I will see plenty of clips of this, but I'm not going to punish myself that way. But I don't need to, because I know, and I'm sure you know, what's going to happen. They're going to use this man's death as a political rally. And you will see speakers, including, I believe, Trump and Vance and people, all these MAGA people, taking this stage. I'm sure they will say nice things about Charlie Kirk. Many of those things will be lies because they are turning this man into something that he was not. So in eulogizing him, they will be lying about him. Painting a picture of this man that did not match the reality of who this man was. But on top of the kind words they have to say about Charlie Kirk, they will also bash Democrats and the left. And they will do so in the most disgusting of terms. I don't know that for a fact, but I would pretty much bet everything I have that that's exactly what will happen. It will be disgusting. You will see a president of the United States using the death of his supposedly good friend Charlie Kirk to say the most disgusting, despicable things about his fellow Americans who he has political disagreement with. He will accuse them, I'm sure they will accuse the left, generally speaking, many times of causing this man's death. It's just going to be awful. It'll be an absolutely disgusting, despicable spectacle. And I wonder what the American people will think of it. Of course, the MAGA right will eat it up, but who gives a shit what they think? They are who they are. There's a group of them, way too many of them, but they're a minority of this country. And they're a group that I don't think is getting any bigger. It may not be shrinking as fast as we would like, but they are who they are, and they're horrible people. But again, they're a minority. I wonder what the rest of the people in this country will think about it. Those who actually see what happens there. And I'm sure the media will do their best to sanitize what happens at this event today, just as they sanitize all the insane shit that Donald Trump says on a nearly daily basis. So if we're going to be honest, probably most Americans who won't be watching this, and they only know what they see in bits and pieces on social media and elsewhere, they're not going to get the full scope of what happened or will have happened at this thing. So who knows? They won't even get a full picture. But to the extent that they do, will decent people be revolted by this? Will decent people who may not be particularly political be revolted by seeing one political party use the death of a person, the murder of a person, to bash the other political party in the kind of disgusting way that we will almost certainly see them do? I don't know. We'll see. I try not to predict anymore how the American people will react to anything. There was a time when I felt confident in anticipating how most of our fellow Americans would react to things. No more. More and more, I don't recognize the people of this country anymore. I can't relate to them. I don't understand them, a lot of them. So I don't know. I don't know how they'll react. but we'll see. I do want to, while I have you here, I do want to discuss something else. Yesterday I put up a video that I titled Question Everything. And it was about how some people, even on, the non-MAGA side of things, are criticizing anyone who dares to even question what we're being told about the Charlie Kirk murder investigation. Particularly some podcasters and things on the left who are just condescending and nasty and label anyone who even raises any questions about what we're being told as crazy conspiracy theorists. And in that video, it was about calling that out and saying that there are reasons to question, that we shouldn't just blindly accept anything we're being told by these people, and that there's a lot of weird stuff, as we've talked about here, related to that murder investigation. And I was specifically talking about those text messages. And look, I don't want to keep talking about this, and I'm hoping this is the last time I do. But judging from some of the comments, which I do my best to try to read to see how my video landed, to see if I was clear in what I was saying, some people seemed to take from what I said that I was arguing that those text messages were just a hoax, and that I was firmly of that camp, that this is all a big conspiracy. I'm not. I thought I made it clear in that video. Well, let me make it clear again. I'm not saying that, and I acknowledge that those text messages may be exactly what they purport, what they are being purported to be, and they may be true and authentic. I am just saying that there are so many things about them that are strange, and this whole investigation really, that it is perfectly reasonable to ask questions. And I could make arguments on both sides, like with respect to the text messages. I can give you a list of arguments for why, they may be a hoax, and I can give you a list of arguments for believing that no, they're probably authentic. So my point was not to push one point of view on that, but to call out those who are dismissive and condescending, and worse, to people who have legitimate, in my view, legitimate questions. Now, a couple of things too, while I'm on it, specifically about this that I didn't mention before. And by the way, you know what always struck me as odd? We're told that this guy turned himself in, right? It was a little confusing at first. We were told that his father turned him in, but then if you read those text messages, he says to his roommate that he's going to turn himself in. But you know what's odd? I've never seen this before. There was no warrant for his arrest, right? At that point, they didn't even know who they were looking for, because Kash Patel and the boys were so incompetent, they had no suspect. So he turns himself in. Nobody's looking for him. But he turns himself in, but then we're told he's not cooperating in any way. He's not saying he did it. He's not providing any information. Have you ever heard of that before? Where someone turns themselves in when they're not even being sought, there's not even an arrest warrant, they turn themselves in, but then don't say why they're turning themselves in, don't cooperate, don't say anything. Hey, I'm just turning myself in so that you can put me in jail, but I'm not going to tell you why I'm here, and I'm not going to cooperate in any way. I'm sorry, that's weird as shit, is it not? Anyway, here's a comment I got from someone today. They said, one of my favorite creators, who's also a lawyer, put out a video scoffing at those of us who are questioning the texts. He made it sound like they'd already been submitted as evidence and argued that no lawyer would do that if they were fake. Okay, so a couple of things. One, they've not been admitted as evidence, as I explained in my last video. Evidence is only submitted at a trial, and evidence is only admitted by a judge after the other side has an opportunity to contest the admission of that evidence. So nothing has been admitted into evidence. There has been information put into an affidavit in support of the arrest, but that's not evidence. That's just a statement made by one law enforcement officer in a probable cause affidavit. That's it, okay? So that's number one. But this idea that no lawyer would do that. First of all, again, it wasn't the lawyer who swore to this information. It was a law enforcement officer. That's number one. But have you been looking around? Do you see the people in the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, these kinds of people? You don't think there's any prosecutors in this country who would engage in this sort of fraudulent activity for political reasons? Don't be naive. I'm not saying any of that's happening. I'm just saying, again, the dismissiveness with which they deal with legitimate questions. But anyway, this is one of those arguments that does, that is an argument in favor of these things being legitimate. Because I told you, they're not evidence at this point. They still would have to be introduced in a court of law. Their authenticity would have to be established before they're admitted into evidence. But even if they aren't offered as evidence by the prosecutors, the defense can always bring these up because these text messages were mentioned in an affidavit. So they can, make something of that. I thought you said there were texts. You said in an affidavit there were texts. What happened with those texts? Why aren't you offering them? And so forth and so on. This could be damaging to the prosecution's case for sure, which is, a reason to believe that they may in fact be legit. But then the flip side of that only becomes relevant if it actually goes to trial. I seriously doubt this will ever go to trial. First of all, this guy could be Epsteined while he's awaiting trial, which if I had money to bet, I might bet some money on him being Epsteined. But number two, this is almost certainly to result, as most cases do, in a plea bargain agreement. He's facing the death penalty. He may very well enter a plea bargain agreement in which the death penalty is taken off the table and he pleads guilty in exchange for life in prison without the death penalty. That's how these cases are usually handled. That's probably what will happen, in which case these text messages, all these things that they said in this affidavit will never even be tested in a court of law. So none of this will ever be an issue. Anyway, but as to this affidavit itself, there's really two affidavits we're talking about. There was the initial affidavit when this guy originally turned himself in. They had to file something to substantiate the arrest that they then made on him. They can't just hold people with no reason. There has to be paperwork. There has to be probable cause for why this person is in jail, right? What are we holding this guy on? What's the probable cause to believe he committed a crime? And so that was that's the original affidavit. But then there was also one in support of the information. The charges, you recall the charges came a couple of days after, but those are only the preliminary charges. Those aren't the charges he will go to trial on if he goes to trial. He would still need to either be indicted, or in Utah, they have what is called a probable cause hearing, where a judge has to determine if there is in fact probable cause to hold this person over for trial. So that still would need to happen. Anyway, the second probable cause affidavit was attached to the information, which is the official charging document that they filed. And they don't say the exact same things. I have them right here, printed them out. I'm not going to read the whole thing, they're lengthy, but I'm going to read the part with respect to the text messages. And so this is what they say in the first probable cause affidavit. They say, investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed the roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the message on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The important part here that I want you to pay attention to is the fact that they, in this probable cause affidavit, because what I've heard said is, one of the arguments is, they offered these text messages as evidence. They got these text messages from the phone company. Are you saying the phone company manufactured this evidence? They didn't get it from the phone company, at least not yet. They don't get that stuff that quick. They have to subpoena it. Those records have to be retrieved and printed out and everything. They didn't have them yet. These messages, these text messages that we were told about, were simply screenshots from the roommate's phone. And on this first probable cause affidavit, they said they were Discord messages. So those aren't even text messages as we commonly refer to them, but from phone to phone number to phone number. This is through the app Discord, which is different than a text message. Okay, so you wouldn't even get those from the phone company, from the cell carrier. Okay, and now here's the second probable cause affidavit. This is the one that came later. This is the one they would have put a little bit more time and attention to in conjunction with lawyers, because this actually got submitted to the court. And here's the relevant part here. They wrote, police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting and provided those messages to police. On September 10th, 2022, the roommate received, okay, so they don't even get the date right in something they submitted to the court. On September 10th, 2022, I printed this out verbatim. This is from the PDF they filed with the court, and they got the wrong fucking year on here. September 10th, 2022. The roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, quote, drop what you were doing, look under my keyboard, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, it just goes on to say things that you've already known about in the text. The important part here is they don't say anything about this being a Discord conversation. They just say text messages. They don't provide any information about where they got those text messages, other than the roommate told police that the roommate received messages and provided those messages to police. In what form did he provide it? I'm assuming just the same way they did before with screenshots. They're still talking about the screenshots. Otherwise, they would have said, we subpoenaed phone records from Verizon or whatever, and they probably would have attached those records. They don't have the records from the phone company. These are the screenshots. And when they say text messages, again, it's confusing. They say they were, in one affidavit, they say they're Discord messages. In the other, they say they're text messages. They make no mention of Discord. And they got the wrong fucking year on this thing, which just shows you, I mean, I don't think that's indicative of this being a cover-up or a hoax or anything. Just shows you how sloppy police work can be, and even lawyers. There's no way they filed this with the court without prosecutors having read this, okay? And they probably started with just a form document that they've been using since 2022. But just the fact that this is the most important case going on in the country, all eyes are on them, and they can't even get the fucking year right in their probable cause affidavit that they're attaching to this information that they're filing with the court. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on about this, and I don't want to keep doing videos about this. My point is simply, there are reasons to question. There are reasons to believe, hey, there's something fishy going on. There's also reasons to believe, yeah, this might look weird, but I'm sure this is all authentic. There's arguments on both sides. My whole point in all of this is, it pisses me off when I see people attack others for just raising legitimate questions. That was the point of my last video. And there's so many people who think they know what the hell they're talking about out there. Even a lot of lawyers I'm seeing talk about this stuff, or they say they're lawyers. And they haven't read these probable cause affidavits themselves. A lot of them don't know how, the criminal process works. I mean, just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you know shit about criminal law, okay? I'm a lawyer. You don't want to go to me for tax advice necessarily, okay? I'm not a tax lawyer. I don't know the ins and outs of the freaking 40,000 page tax code. But, but people might believe something that I say about it because I'm a lawyer. Same thing with, lawyers talking about criminal stuff. And if you don't practice criminal law, you probably don't know what the fuck you're talking about, all right? So just because someone's a lawyer doesn't mean they know shit. And a lot of lawyers, if they're partisan hacks, they'll freely lie about the law. Look at Pam Bondi. She says there's a difference between free speech and hate speech. No, there's not. Anyways, I'm gonna be talking about Pam Bondi later. Have you heard what Trump posted about Pam Bondi directing her specifically to go after his political enemies? Anyway, there's a lot to talk about. I'm gonna wrap this up. Got some things to do. I'm gonna record some videos later. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this all made sense. I don't want to keep talking about this, but I wanted to clear that last video up. If you haven't watched it, by the way, please go check it out. It's called Question Everything. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.